Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you had a really great weekend. So we are heading into the second week of 2024, and last week was a split week where the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, were the last 2 days of 2024. Then Wednesday was New Year's Day, markets were closed, and Thursday and Friday were the first two trading days of 2025. And we opened SPY last week with a gap down underneath the 50-day moving average. And then from there, we dropped down to 585. And if we look back, 585 had a little bit of history. It was right here on top of the election gap. We did find support there right here a little bit after the election. And before that, it was a resistance level. So 585 is where we dropped down to. And from there, we bounced back up to the 35 EMA and 50-day moving average. The signal line turned red to start the week, and we did see a pushback down from around the 50-day moving average area, and we brought it back down to 585 right here. And right here is where we closed 2024. And on Thursday, we opened with a gap up, found that 35 EMA, and that pushed us back down, and then we got down into the election gap, and right above where the two gaps overlap, I'm going to zoom out really fast, this down gap right here and this up gap right here, right where they overlap is where we bounced, and then we closed the first trading day just underneath, or really right at, the 585 level, and then on Friday we opened with a gap up, got back above the 35 EMA, and pushed up and closed just outside of the implied move. So 591 was the top of the implied move. We actually closed much closer to the next day's implied move, 592. And just underneath that 50-day moving average. And SPX, same thing over here. We opened with a gap down on Monday underneath that 50-day moving average, and we bounced right here at, what is it in SPX? 5870. So 5870 was that same support level. Zooming back, you could see that it was a resistance back here right before the election. Then it did turn into a support level. So we took it down to there, 5870, and then we bounced up, took it to the 50-day moving average, much cleaner rejection at the 50-day moving average than SPY, and then from there we dropped back down to 5870, and we closed the year of 2024 right here, just above this support. Then we opened on Thursday with a gap up to the 35 EMA, got rejected at that level, dropped underneath this support. And then at this point, we were pretty oversold. And we did see a technical bounce there above the 35 EMA, and we pushed all the way back up to the 50-day moving average. So SPY on Friday did close up 1.25%, SPX up 1.26%, VIX down almost 10%, down 9.93%. And we did not close within the implied move on Friday. All right, and then taking it over to QQQ, we did open last Monday, which was the second to last day of 2024, with a gap down. And I actually don't have it in here, but there should be a red gap right here. I'll fix that before heading into tomorrow's trading range. But we did open with a gap down, and that was just a little bit above the 50-day moving average. And we did bounce back up to the 35 EMA. And then we closed the year with a solid down day. The very last day of the year, we opened, where did we open? Right here. Tuesday, we opened right here, and we dropped down to the 50-day moving average. And this candle right here is the last candle of the year. So we closed just a tiny bit above that 50-day moving average. And on Thursday, after New Year's Day, we opened with a gap up to the 35 EMA. That level smacked us down underneath the 50-day moving average. At this point, we were pretty oversold on many time frames, not just the 30-minute. We did see flashes of oversold on the 1 day, the 4 hours. So we had a technical bounce. We got back above the 50-day moving average, above the 35 EMA, and we pushed all the way up and outside of the implied move. So big day on Friday across the board. And QQQ closed up 1.64%. VXN closed down 6.73%, and we closed outside of the implied move on Friday and just underneath that 1 hour 200 moving average. And IWM, last week we opened IWM with a small gap down. From there, we did drop down to support, which was right here at 218. And then from there, we got back above the 35 EMA, and it was a little bit of a struggle. We closed the year right here. Thursday, we gapped up. And with the rest of the market, we dropped back underneath the 35 EMA. And then Friday, we gapped up above the 35 EMA. And we did take it to right between the two implied moves. This was on Friday and Monday's contract. So 224 to 225, we closed at 224.43. IWM closed up 1.49% on Friday, and RVX closed down 7.67%. And I didn't do this for the other three, but IWM had an up week. From where we opened to where we closed was up last week for IWM. So small caps did have the best week. And DIA, we opened last week with a gap down, and we did drop down to support. And this right here was the election gap. So the election gap, when it filled, that became support, and that is where we bounced on Monday. We did take it back up to the 35 EMA, and we did see resistance in this red gap right here. So when we started the year, we closed 2024 right here, and then we gapped up into this gap and got pushed back out. And we did close on Friday. We did open with a gap up, and then we pushed up and closed right at the top of the implied move on Friday. So shaky start to the new year. We're underneath the 50-day moving average, and the Dow did close up 0.79% on Friday, and we did close at the very top of the implied move. All right, that was a quick recap of last week. Let's go check out tomorrow's levels. Alright guys, so before we head into tomorrow's trading ranges, if you find these videos useful, if they help you to choose better strikes and take better trades, and you love how I break it down every night, then please make sure to give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out when I do post new videos. Leave me a comment if you have any questions at all. This is not easy stuff, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. And if I helped you to nail that trade and you want to buy me a coffee, the thank you button underneath the video helps to support this channel. Alright, so starting in SPY, tomorrow's implied move is between 588 and 596, and that is from options. The 30-day average volatility and the implied move on Tuesday's contract is 586 to 598. And tomorrow's trading range is pretty wild. We've got a lot of stuff going through it. To the upside, the first levels to know about is this 50-day moving average, and that is with that down gap that we started last week with. So let me lock that into place. So this down gap is just above where we closed on Friday. We got into it a little bit and then pushed down a little bit as well. Right in there is the 50-day moving average. And if we get above that level, then 596, and then the 30-minute 200 moving average is also up there. So 596 on tomorrow's contract, 598 on Tuesday's contract. Because these are $2 apart, I'm probably going to be looking at 597. If we get up here, I feel like 597 would be a great strike to sell on the day. And then underneath us, we do have the 35 EMA. always know where the 35 EMA is. Tomorrow it's in the bottom of the trading range. And if we do get underneath that, if this breaks, 588 is the bottom of the implied move. And then 586 on Tuesday's contract. Again, we're $2 apart here, and we also have a green gap underneath that. So I would probably be looking to 587. So we have this up gap from last Friday, just underneath the trading range for the next 2 days. So if we're just looking at the momentum of the moving averages coming through the trading range tomorrow, we have some downward momentum over here, and this 30-minute 200 moving average was resistance the last time we saw it. This right here was the day after Christmas, and then we got pushed back down. And then 50-day moving average is up, but almost flat, and then the 35 EMA is underneath us. And then SPX, the implied move tomorrow over here is between 5,900 and 5,980. That is from options. The 30-day average volatility and Tuesday's implied move is 5,885 to 6,000. And to the upside, we do have the 50-day moving average, this down gap, and the 30-minute 200 moving average. So quite a lot of chaos to the upside. If we get above all that, 5,980 is the top of the implied move, and 6,000 on Tuesday's contract. And zooming this back just a little bit, the 30-minute 200 moving average, the last time we saw it was right here, which is the day after Christmas, and we got pushed back away from it. So that is right here. So again here, just looking at the momentum, we have downward momentum at the top, 35 EMA up here, and the 50-day moving average. That 50-day moving average is a huge level, and we did start the year underneath it. That is a big deal. So quite a bit of resistance to the upside. Underneath us, 35 EMA, 5,900 is the bottom of the implied move for tomorrow. 5,885 on Tuesday's contract, and then we do have this up gap from last Friday. And again, underneath that, we do have this support right here. This is a long-term resistance turned support, and this is at 5,870. So if we do drop, if we do fill this gap, we could see that as a short-term support level. A lot of times when we fill gaps, we do see a technical bounce. So quite a full trading range, a lot to know about. QQQ, the implied move over here for tomorrow, is between 514 and 524. That is from options. 30-day average volatility, and Tuesday's implied move is 512 and 525. And to the upside, we have the 1 hour 200 moving average. Last week, we did see that level as a resistance right here to start the week. And right above that, we have the down gap that we opened last week with. We did not fill that. We got pushed down at the 1 hour 200 moving average. And if we get above that, 524 is the top of the implied move. We have that 30-minute 200 moving average over here. We are bearish on this time frame. This 35 EMA is underneath the 30-minute 200 moving average. So this should be considered a resistance level until this 35 EMA crosses back up. So we definitely could see that as resistance, which makes 524, 525 an attractive spread for tomorrow. And then to the downside, 35 EMA. If that doesn't hold as support tomorrow, and we do have a green signal line right here. So if this holds as support, then look up. But if we break this, then 514 is the bottom of the implied move. We have that 50-day moving average right there with that up gap from Friday. So that is likely going to be a critical level to test. And then 512 on Tuesday's contract, that's the bottom of the implied move. So because the 50-day moving average is running right through there between 512 and 514, 513 might not be a bad strike to choose tomorrow if you're selling bull put spreads on the day. And then to the upside, I think I already mentioned 524, 525 does look like a good spread to me. So those are the strikes that I'm definitely going to be looking for. And IWM, the implied move tomorrow, here is between 222 and 227, and that is from options. 30-day average volatility is quite a bit wider, 219 to 230 and 221 to 228 on Tuesday's contract. And to the upside, we do have the first level of resistance is just above us here, and that is at 225. And 225, there is a bit of history here. And if we go back just a little bit, that was a kind of a sloppy resistance here. I feel like we did see that, yep, right here resistance, and even further back right here, 225. Saw a lot of resistance here before we hit those. This wasn't all-time highs. This was when we filled that gap before we made all-time highs. So right here, we filled that gap, but getting to there was a lot of resistance at 225. And then we did get up there to fill this gap and then immediately rejected down. So really 225 is where we've been seeing resistance. And then let's get back to, okay, so right there is 225, and above that, 30-minute 200 moving average. Again, here we are bearish until this 35 EMA crosses back above the 30-minute 200 moving average. That momentum is down, so if we do hit that 30-minute 200 moving average, I don't expect that we're going to fly past it. We might see a little bit of choppy sideways until this turns and we get that 35 EMA above it. 227 is the top of the implied move. 228 on Tuesday's contract. That does look like an attractive spread just because of that 30-minute 200 moving average. And then we do have the 50-day moving average pretty much completely flatlined above the trading range, and then above that 1 hour, which is facing down. So some pretty flat and down momentum above our trading range tomorrow. And then lastly, we have DIA, and DIA is set up a little bit differently because we only have weekly contracts here. So we do have the implied move on the week is between 421 to 433. 30-day average volatility lines right up with that, so those numbers should be the same for tomorrow. And to the upside, we do have this down gap. So we did get into that last week a little bit. We opened last week with a gap down, and we did get into that the first trading day of the year, which was on Thursday, and we got rejected out of that. So that is, bottom of that gap is 429 and 430 is the top of that gap. And bear gaps, when they fill, a lot of times we'll see resistance at the top of that gap. We also have the 30-minute 200 moving average coming down, so negative momentum there. 50-day moving average has turned down, and 1 hour 200 moving average has moved down as well. So we are seeing bearish momentum. That does not mean that we won't bounce to meet up, but it means that when we do touch these levels, we have negative momentum there. So expect resistance. And then to the downside, we have the 35 EMA. And if we do break that level, then we do have support down here just above the bottom of the implied move. So 421 and then 421.64 is where we have support. We also have this up gap from Friday. Bottom of the gap could act as a support level. So 423.71, might want to round that up to 424 is where we have support. We are still seeing lower lows right here, lower lows and lower highs. So we are in a downtrend, even though we did close last Friday green. So there you have it, guys. A lot to know tomorrow. Have fun, trade safe, make sure you take profits when you're up, and I will see you guys tomorrow night.